Google has been hit with a record-breaking $5 billion fine by EU regulators for breaking antitrust laws. And Google warns Android might not remain free because of EU's this decision. According to the European Commission, Google has abused its Android market dominance in three key areas. Google has been bundling its search engine and browser app, that is Chrome app, into the operating system. Google has also blocked phone makers from creating devices that run forked versions of Android, that is alternative versions of Android that were not approved by Google. And it made payments to certain large manufacturers and mobile network operators to exclusively bundle the Google Search app on handsets. Google is planning to appeal this decision of European Commission. Through a blog post, Google CEO Sundar Pichai is saying that this decision of the European Commission ignores the fact that Android phones compete with iOS phones, something that 89% of respondents to the Commission's own market survey confirmed. It also misses just how much choice Android provides to thousands of phone makers and mobile network operators who build and sell Android devices, to millions of app developers around the world who have built their businesses with Android, and billions of consumers who can now afford and use cutting-edge Android smartphones. And he suggests that if you prefer other apps or browsers or search engines to the preloaded ones, you can easily disable or delete them and choose other apps instead, including apps made by some of the 1.6 million Europeans who make a living as app developers. In fact, a typical Android phone user will install around 50 apps themselves. Last year, over 94 billion apps were downloaded globally from Google Play App Store. Browsers such as Opera Mini and Firefox have been downloaded more than 100 million times. UC Browser more than 500 million times. This is in stark contrast to how things used to be in the 1990s and early 2000s, the dial-up age. Back then, changing the pre-installed applications on your computer or adding new ones was technically difficult and time-consuming. The Commission's Android decision ignores the new breadth of choice and clear evidence about how people use their phones today. According to Sundar Pichai, the free distribution of the Android platform and of Google's suite of applications is not only efficient for phone makers and operators, it is of huge benefit for developers and consumers. If phone makers and mobile network operators couldn't include Google's apps on their wide range of devices, it would upset the balance of the Android ecosystem. Importantly, Sundar Pichai warned that European Commission's decision will force them to start charging for using Android. He is saying that Android business model has meant that they haven't had to charge phone makers for their technology. Google obtains the vast majority of its revenues via its flagship product, the Google Search Engine. The company understood early on that the shift from desktop PCs to mobile internet, which started in the mid-2000s, would be a fundamental change for Google Search. So, Google developed a strategy to anticipate the effects of this shift and to make sure that users would continue to use Google Search also on their mobile devices. In 2005, Google bought the original developer of the Android mobile operating system and has continued to develop Android ever since. Today, about 80% of smart mobile devices in Europe and worldwide run on Android. When Google develops a new version of Android, it publishes the source code online. This, in principle, allows third parties to download and modify this code to create Android forks. The openly accessible Android source code covers basic features of a smart mobile operating system, but not Google's proprietary Android apps and services. Device manufacturers who wish to obtain Google's proprietary Android apps and services need to enter into contracts with Google, as part of which Google imposes a number of restrictions. Google also entered into contracts and applied some of these restrictions to certain large mobile network operators who can also determine which apps and services are installed on devices sold to end users.